Hey, what's up everyone? Pastor JAMZ back with another review, and today we got the latest album by Caroline Rose, You're the Slug. Caroline Rose, also her real name, is 35-year-old Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter and producer. I have been a huge fan of Caroline's work ever since I found her at a Bath and Body Works out of all places, and I believe it was 2019 or so. However, it was the lead single, More the Same, that was playing that came out from her second album, Loner, released in 2018. Shazammed it, and I have been a fan ever since. Her first album came out in 2014. It's more of a folk style album, really different from the work that she does now, and I have yet to listen to it, and I really should get to that since I am a huge fan of her work. And her third album, Superstar, came out in 2020, gave it second place in my 2020 top albums list of that year. And her 2023 album, The Art of Forgetting, gave it Album of the Year. So yes, I am a huge fan, and I was really excited to see her coming out with this, especially so soon from the gap between her last album and this one. You're the Slug, fifth studio album, released February 7th of this year. 11 tracks and 33 minutes. If you want to get really technical, it's 10 tracks, given that track number 8 is a interlude of sorts, but I'll get to that later. This is also a bit of a strange review because you cannot find this on streaming services. Caroline Rose is taking a stand, and I am backing her up. I'm all for it. I don't know if y'all know this, but streaming services are sometimes shady with how they deal with their artists, especially lower artists that are not really well known. They're kind of underground or indie, things of that nature. They don't really have these big contracts that they don't really need to worry about if they're getting paid by streaming services or not. Specifically, Spotify, to name, is pretty shady with how they deal and how they pay their artists. Spoiler alert, they don't. But that's also for another video. I'm backing her up fully. You can find this album on Bandcamp. I don't know what she's going to do with what the future of this album is. She is currently on tour, only going to small venues that do help and pay artists, independent artists. I'm all for it. It's such an amazing thing, kind of taking a stand, kind of with that writer's strike and that happened, I believe, like a year ago. Kind of get the same vibe here, but hey, kudos to her. It's a big risk, and especially her releasing independently on Bandcamp. I'll link it in the description below, so y'all could go check it out and support her. So, You're the Slug, fifth studio album. It's pretty shorter compared to the rest of her work, and also not really that polished like a pearl, in her own words. She's not a McDonald's hamburger, and we couldn't expect anything from her or any artist that expects something like on demand, like, hey, it has to be this way, and I want it to sound this way, and that's why many people get afraid when new albums come out, because artists tend to explore new sounds. For her, she pretty much keeps it the same. But in terms of the production, she recorded it on Garage Camp or something like that software on her phone. But don't get me wrong, it's very raw, very emotional, and you really do get that true analog sound that isn't really polished, but it would work. I don't think it would work if it was polished to the T, as most albums are these days, with professional engineering and mastering and things of that nature. The raw analog sound is really what gives this album its emotion and its appeal and its sense of identity, is what I'm trying to say here. However, that is also its downfall in a way in some cases. Like, for example, and I'm not trying to nitpick here, but and I believe it's the track Anti-Gravity Struggle. You have no, I'm sorry, it's Another Life. Track number 9, Another Life. At the end of the track, you have 13 seconds of just pure silence. And if I don't understand why that wouldn't be cut out, or if it would be altered or shorter in any way, when she does take the time to put in other tracks like Anti-Gravity Struggle, which is the most well produced track on this thing. So if you're going to go as far as to put in these very echoey electric guitar strings and a very well done, professionally sounded, mastered track that is very well produced, I don't really know why you wouldn't do little things like taking out those last 13 seconds on the track Another Life, where it's very raw and acoustic, but it's just weird, and not trying to nitpick, but it's just kind of made me a little confused as to why she wouldn't do those things when it's kind of obvious in a way. And then on even the flow of the album, it's a little wonky compared to her last album, The Art of Forgetting, which is a roller coaster of emotions, but it kind of keeps the same theme and same flow throughout the whole album. When you have a track called Strange Things, and it's also the most emotional, slow, and acoustic track on this thing, where it is very heavy on the heart, pulling at the heartstrings. Then it goes into Goddamn Train, which is very energetic and reminiscent of her older work that she's done. Great track, by the way. They're both great tracks. But when you do a complete 180, it really does kind of put a bump in the road, especially for me as a listener, as to like, how can you throw something at this like this at me and then expect me to just be like jamming out the next? I mean, I really have to like be careful with how I can't listen to this album straight. I gotta skip when I listen to Strange Things. I gotta skip before I listen to Goddamn Train. But I love both tracks, and then you even have her in terms of her vocals, her vocalizations. It's also very different from her previous stuff, but you get little hints from her previous work, especially in the Art of Forgetting, her last album, and you do see more of that explored here. Like in To Be Lonely, it's very emotional. Her vocals are very high pitched and very raw, and not, like I said, not mastered, but it's not like her voice is horrible. It's very amazing to hear, and you just get that like just so much raw energy from her, especially in Another Life, which I didn't really like at first, but it kind of grew on me because you do have like these really drawn out vocal cords, that vocals that she does do in the track, and it does take a little bit of getting used to, but eventually it did catch up to me, and I really really enjoyed it. But then you also have other tracks like Anti-Gravity Struggle, like I mentioned, and Strange Things, and even Everything in its right place, which has a great chorus, by the way, where her voice is more deeper, more serious toned, and it's really great. In terms of themes of this album, I would have to say it's kind of like the epilogue of sorts to her last album. I think, in my personal opinion, these are like the tracks that really didn't fit with the album, The Art of Forgetting, and were just kind of fleshed out and more explored with Year of the Slug, and like Conversation with Shiv. I really do see that as more like the single track of this album. However, there were no singles released, but probably the most well thought out production in terms of people who usually listen to her work. You would feel most comfortable and most recognizable with it's most recognized with this track, Conversation with Shiv, with this track number 3. And I think that in terms of like her getting over this breakup and her kind of continuing on trying to love herself again, she continues to struggle a little bit here and there with getting over that person and running into them even, and hoping that they would love them again and change, give them a chance. But she kind of has this sense of moving forward still. She's continued to move forward, and I just wish her all the best and think that, it's really powerful for her to continue this work and taking a stand, like I said, releasing this independently on Bandcamp, touring independently at these small venues. I'm giving Carolina Rose's new album, Year the Slug, a 7.5 out of 10. I wish I could give it higher. I really don't think it's a 7. Right there, smack in the middle, 7.5 out of 10 is really great. I just think that her past 3 albums, you got Loner, Superstar, and The Art of Forgetting, they're all 9s. And I think giving it an 8 would be a little bit too high, and I really want to set the gap and bar that she has with those albums, because those projects are just spectacular and phenomenal. Please check this out, y'all. It's really a really really good listen. Definitely worth to check out on Bandcamp. Link in the description below. Supporter Caroline Rose, Year the Slug, 7.5. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Pass the Jams is out.